Hi, thank you for introducing me. And yeah, so I'd like to thank, oh, yeah, it's better this way. I think I'll keep it like that. Well, thank you for the organizer, volunteers, sponsors, everyone. And also thank you for choosing my talk. So it's my second year now in a row. Yeah, I'm super stressed, but I'm subjecting myself to this another time. Yeah. Not smart. Anyway, so my name is Eléonore, or Eleanor, if it's easier. Can you actually hear me? Okay, great. And I'm going to talk about working as a developer with people that are journalists and data journalists. So first about me, I'm a developer with a non-CS background, and okay, I'll stop touching it. And I learned to code in 2012. Yeah, sorry. So I learned to code in Python in 2012. And since then, I worked at digital agencies, startups, and consultancies, mainly in London, actually. And I worked a bit with Python, and actually, I worked a lot with Clojure. And so that was before I moved to Stockholm, which was last year. And since I moved to Stockholm, I've worked as a freelancer. And my first and main client was this data journalist organization called Journalism++, or jplusplus. And as of this year in September, I'm working part-time as a developer there. And I'm actually the first developer there. On the side, on my free time, I was the founder and organizer at PyLadies London, and I'm now a co-organizer at PyLadies Stockholm. And I'm also a coding mentor at this really cool organization in Sweden and also in Norway called Ping Programming. And so Journalism++ started in 2013 as like a network of data journalists in those 6 European cities. But now it's one organization with 2 offices, one in Stockholm, so the office where I work, and one in Porto, in Portugal. And so I already started talking about data journalists and data journalism. So I guess it's not, the border of it are not that clear, a bit like in data science. But it's a data-driven domain within journalism where one would use querying for and analyzing data as a way to identify and investigate stories, and then create web application or interactive visualization to present and tell stories. And maybe as a user or as a citizen, you don't necessarily think about it, but you must have seen a lot of it. So I have a few examples here. One very famous example are the Panama Papers, which is a huge story on financial data leaks that happened last year and was presented by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalism. So they have this web app where one can search for people's names or countries, something like that. But they also allow other journalists, or anyone actually, to look through the data that is available in CSV, although it's quite, well, CSV format is quite usual, but they also use Neo4j graph database, so if for people that are used to that, could use that. Another example that I quite liked was the Washington Post, where the journalists have this current theme of fact checker, which I guess started since Trump was elected, where they're trying to keep like track of the, how do we say these days, untruth, falsehood. Yeah, so that's quite interesting, I think. And I wanted to add a local example. So meanwhile, in Sweden, so people are hunting And there's this really nice, actually, application on SVT's website where you scroll down and you see the map get more interactive, and throughout time you see well, in this case, it's the number of elk that are hunted. So that's just examples of what's the point of data journalism, basically. And when I came across Journalism Plus Plus, I was quite interested because they were involved. They have been one of the team involved in this quite big project that was called the Migrants Files. And the app is still up, although it's not being updated anymore. But basically, it shows so the human and financial costs. So it's quite, for me, it's super interesting. It's also super intense because the human costs are actually people who passed away on their way towards, often towards Europe or outside of their country anyway. And also interesting to see financial costs, which are millions that our governments are actually spending, for example, deporting people away and stuff like that. And so that's how I got interested in this organization, actually before I moved to Stockholm, and then I contacted them when I came. And so this is the current Journalism Plus Plus team, and I put a circle around the people in the Stockholm office. So the co-founders are Jens, Leo, and Petter, and my two colleagues are Katarina and Sasha. So they all have a journalist background. They are also coders at different levels. And Sasha is also taking a new training in law, so he will have this triple threat, I guess we could say. And what do we do? So part of our activity, and a part in which I was involved when I started working with jplusplus, is actually teaching journalists, teaching them how to code. And then we have like an internal product called Newsworthy, and we have other clients' projects from media outlet, media groups, or research groups, sometimes digital agencies, and yeah. So now I have the little disclaimer. So I'm not, although it's super interesting being a developer in a newsroom, I don't have this experience, so I can't talk about it. And I'm not going to talk about how to become a data journalist either. So I'm going to talk about my experience working at jplusplus and some of the takeaways I have from my experience. So first, as I said, I was involved with the programming classes for journalists. So they have been in the past, and there still are some workshops that are a bit tailored when some clients want it. But the main class that we have is the programming for journalists, which is over 5 weeks, 1 day a week, and so far, what I've seen in Swedish, but we have a course coming up, which is the same version, but compacted into 1 week and in English for people that would come into Stockholm for this 1 week and then follow the whole course. And so on the right, well, it's a bit small, I don't know if you can see, but it's like the program of our last course, and I will expand more on it anyway. So they will be learning basics of using the command line, so at least they can navigate to their folder and run their Python programs. And then some basics of Python data structures, conditionals, loops, and working with importing libraries using APIs, reading and writing files. So that's during the class, 1 day a week during 5 weeks, and then they have homeworks for the next class. And in between, we offer them a support on Slack. So we have a Slack group for each class, and they can ask questions and ask for feedback on their code and so on. And so it's quite targeted at what they're towards their needs, especially because it has been developed by journalists. And they will learn to generate text, do web scraping, gather data like tweets to analyze. And at the end of the course, they have a project that they present. So a bit more about the program and how it evolved. So we're quite flexible and trying to adapt to the people that are actually in the class. So they're usually small groups, less than 10 people, and we try to evaluate, looking at their faces sometimes. If they look to panic, it's like, okay, maybe we cannot add a new layer of complexity. So it's just interesting to see that the content evolved a lot, and so we removed quite a lot. So at the beginning it was, I don't know if you would say ambitious. There's just a lot to learn basically, and most of them have really low, like no coding background at all, or they've tried Python a bit. And so I highlighted here in blue that we went from functions are important because we know that, especially myself, I've worked with people that are academics, researchers, and they could have scripts that are really very, very long. And we want to stress to them the importance of being able to reuse some part of their code. So functions are important, but we realized that we were adding more and more information, and it was a bit overwhelming. So we went from waiting until the second week to introduce it to just in the last course not mentioning functions at all, which, well, mentioning it, yes, but not having them write functions, which is, it feels weird, but in the end, it's better because if they're not, if they don't get this frozen, like, that's too much, then they can still use what they understood so far, and we can just tell them that there's a lot more to learn. And then, at the bottom is, when I joined the class, I was super excited. And then at the last day after the demo, I introduced Git and GitHub. And then that's how the web works. And then HTTP and all those libraries and Jupyter Notebook. And then security is important. And they were overwhelmed. Not doing this anymore. But again, about the program, just insisting, I guess, on the simplicity. So there's no computer science basics at all. We're not even getting into what I had seen before at workshops. Like, we're not mentioning high level, low level, static, dynamic, no limiting the jargon to the maximum. So comparing to other programs, no mention of classes and objects, which can be a bit tricky when answering some question about Python if we can't say that, oh, everything is an object, because then we have to explain object, and then we might lose them. Oops. That's where I wanted to go, because I mentioned before that they needed to generate text, and I don't know if you know about it, because I surely didn't know how interesting it could be that for them, after just 2 or 3 weeks, basically by being able to format a string, they can have a very valuable result, which is named apparently as text robots, which is used a lot. So I have an example from Sveriges Radio, but I think they're everywhere nowadays. It's basically data journalists writing programs where they can sort of format, modifying municipality, region, anything. And it's as simple as reading a CSV file with election results and then doing a for loops. For each row of the CSV, they will have access to the municipality or region or whatever. And then they would use the data for the political party's result to create a text and automate this text so that when they get the result, they can run their scripts, and then they have text generated for every municipalities. And so, yeah, so just after even the first course, they're really excited. You can see they're really excited because they realize they can, what they have seen their competitors maybe doing, there's something they can already do with a few lines and maybe a few nested if-else statements. And that's examples of what have some of the students' projects that have been published. So the first one is a case of going through leaked files of people buying from far-right, like website, well, yeah, white supremacist websites. And one journalist retrieved this data and went through it. I don't know, certainly just a case of a for loop and matching names from politicians, and found out that a local politician that was at the time, I think, running for the election had actually purchased Nazi literature. And the other one is a project with one of our former students looking at insurance and trying to reverse engineer, looking at the forms of provided by the insurance companies and trying to see how the prices are done. So just a way to show that after just basically 5 days of classes over 5 weeks, they already have some tangible results, something that they can actually publish. And yeah, so as I said, I think it's super exciting. And because we can keep it simple and practical, then they can implement what they learned. Another thing that I found exciting is we're expanding the Python community. Not only are we getting more people in, but we're also making it wider in the sense that it's not just developers, data scientists, and researchers, scientists, it's also journalists, so we have more and more diversity within our community. And yeah, as an organization, we are teaching them new skills, which is really cool for the pursuit of their career. But also because of the work they do, I feel like indirectly, at least, we're making a positive impact. But it's also quite challenging to get in people from sometimes different levels within a class, and try to adapt also while the class is going on, to see how, depending on how far some of them are learning, knowing that obviously they're not learning at the same speed. And a tricky thing for me personally is to not overwhelm them, so maintain this balance and give them more information, but yeah, not tell too much. And maybe, so there's a reflection on our side on maybe developing a follow-up course. And then something that I think about, but I haven't found any solution, is for them to actually know that they're feel that they're part of a wider community. It's not just them on their laptop trying to do their project. There are more people out there that they could interact with and could help them. And they also have something to bring to the community. So I still don't know how to make this happen, but yeah, it would be really cool. So now another side of the work at Journalism Plus Plus, so we have several projects, and I chose to talk about the ones that relates to data pipelines. So it's involved in internal project or clients projects where we would have like input data, which would vary. Sometimes we would scrap data or get data through an API or database. Then we'll have to transform it in a way, do an analysis, and the output will often be either a kind of article or a web application. And in particular for this product that we have called Newsworthy, we get in data sets that could be on the local level, or we have we're part of a European network, so we also ingest European-level data sets, and we look, the kind of data set will be like employment and crime, so we can look for a spike in crime, for example, or a change of trend in unemployment. And behind it is a statistical model that looks for statistically different events that could be newsworthy, hence the name. And then we generate text. So it's a lot like the text robots, actually. We generate some text, but we generate JSON format data, and then the images is a matplotlib graph that we also generate. And from that, we create a news story that is actually sent to people who register for this, having access to Newsworthy. So if they're interested in a specific region, they will see that you will get an update on saying there's this new trend in, employment, could be transportation, whatever. And the form of it is actually an HTML page with the text from within the JSON data and the graphs from the matplotlib images. And another kind of data pipeline that we have, mostly in clients' projects, so we'll be asked to use some particular type of data, of sometime by scraping or something like that, so which means that we also need to, I had this little arrow because we need to update it if there are any changes. So regularly retrieve more updated data, often see the database and merge the data and use it to seed, for example, an application or run an analysis. And so we are currently, we have those pipeline in place because we have this internal product already and we have clients projects, but we are currently trying to improve it and create a fully automated data pipeline, and which will mean that we'll also have a monitoring system and an alerting system on top of it. So for now, all of those projects are organized in a quite modular fashion, so hopefully it should be easy to sort of transform those projects to attain the desired data pipeline. So we're currently researching around this idea, and as everyone else, we heard and we sort of tried out Lambda, and we're quite excited and tempted to use AWS Lambda. We already use AWS for other things, and it looks like if we combine AWS Lambda with other services, like they have the simple notification service and simple queue service, so it feels like we could build this automated pipeline, and on top of that, we would create our own monitoring app. But yeah, someone mentioned Airflow earlier, so that's also could be also an interesting sort of framework which has the monitoring already included. So one of the reasons I'm mentioning that, if you have a strong opinion about that, come and talk to me, so I can bring back this information. Yeah, so that's the last part where I'm diffusing some of my feedback and 2 cents, my opinions, basically. So I feel what I feel like being a developer amongst data journalists. So what is involved? Curiosity and some general knowledge or ideas of, because there's so one needs to bring up ideas of projects or things to look for. So I feel like it's important to be interested in different kind of subjects. Communication, I guess it's everywhere. And I wrote in parentheses documentation because, yeah, one needs to document their code. And flexibility, so we try to use new technologies and implement new ideas as much as possible, and focus on delivering things simple and practical as much as possible. And in my case, maybe because it's a small organization, but one would need to know, like, be able to work with data and be able to work with web technologies. And yeah, so kind of a lot of technologies that will be used in other tech organizations, well, in tech organizations. In terms of tools, what do we use? We also use tools that are used in tech companies, Slack. Like, I guess nowadays everyone uses Slack. And then Trello, that's how we keep track of our planning, and we also have project-specific Trello boards. In terms of processes, we don't have like a clear agile methodology use, but we have some kind of stand-up / planning, but it's like weekly, because we have those like weekly sprints. We're not heavy on meetings, but we're trying to keep track of what the other office is doing as well. And if we're part of a network for a specific project, we also need to keep track of that. I personally, I'm not a strong agile person, but I just feel like I would like to maybe add and implement retrospective meetings. In terms of interactions, so that's sort of lesson learned and potential advice for you. So because it's not only my interactions with my colleagues, but it's also a lesson from listening to our students who are actual professionals, and some of them they work in big media companies where they have teams of developers, and sometimes apparently the interaction is not that easy. So I just a reminder, spread the word that well, first they're all kind of non-technical person, and there's some people who don't have a technical title but are still somewhat technical, and sometimes they just learned a bit and they're completely insecure, but it would be maybe your job, my job, to reassure people that, yes, you know, you're technical. So take on less experienced coders, listen to what they need, actually, and try and give them advice and point them towards the right directions. And sometimes they have a problem, and it can just, even though they're not developers, but they could write just a bit of code and automate something that is a pain for them. Yeah, and then again, the big thing is it's good to give advice and be excited. Like, I don't know, I know I am, but just limit yourself to the bare minimum and ask the person to come back again if they need more information. So as to not overwhelm them, and then yeah, knowledge exchange is really good within organization. For example, one of the journalists mentioned that within their organization, they knew one other person who learned Python, or maybe they learned R or something like that. So just encouraging knowledge sharing, maybe could be a lunchtime talk or workshop where they could exchange on what they learned and what they know. And so it could be done amongst same level of experience or more experienced people with less experienced people. And yeah, so another slide to say, so my point here is during your career, maybe you're really excited to work at tech companies, which is fair. I know I have worked before in tech organizations, but also think about, in relation also to what Lorena said about what kind of impact you want to make, think that you can apply your technical skills to non-technical organizations. So when you're looking for your next position, maybe widen a bit the kind of things that you want to do, widen your perspectives, so widen your job search, look into all the kind of organizations, and like an example is science, art, education, but yeah. Yeah, your skills are needed a bit everywhere, basically. And so that's my 2 cents. I don't know if it's relevant for you. Yeah, that's it. I have those slides, and the other resource is a handbook about data journalism, and at Eléonore Mayola on Twitter, and jplusplus is at jplusplus_ on Twitter. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions? Yep. You want? Thanks.
Hello. Yeah. So I saw that you taught a bit in like what pink coding something.
Pink programming. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that also people coming in from scratch, right? They know nothing.
Yes. Oh, I'm glad you asked, because myself and other pink programmers in the room, Sarah over there, we didn't dare come up for the lightning talk, but ask your company to sponsor pink programming, especially if you're in Stockholm, Malmö, or Gothenburg. Yeah, so it's people usually coming from scratch, some just out of what is coding, or wanting to switch career, or wondering what to study at university. So yeah, the age group varies a lot, but usually it's like newcomers. And so I'm a coding mentor, so it really can vary what I have to do. It can just be someone who's asking, I want to learn to code, what should I learn first? So I heard about JavaScript, and then I heard about, maybe they heard about Python, Java, and they're quite lost. And some people would be more focused on doing a project, something in particular. And yeah, and we also have workshops, and yeah, we're looking for companies to sponsor us, and yeah, in Sweden.
I have a follow-up question. Could you say something about the difference teaching someone who is maybe fresh from school or from others, something, compared to journalists that you're teaching?
Oh, that's a good question.
Like functions.
So yeah, I can't really compare, because at Pink Programming I haven't done an intro to Python like workshop. I did with the friend Mariana, I did the intro to AWS Lambda, but I think the differences are more maybe in terms of individual. Like some people are very proactive, some would already try out and easily even Google things for themselves. And some people are maybe more like waiting for answers. And yeah, it's, I don't know, am I just wasting your time? But I was just going to say I'm really keen on one-to-one, like interacting, because during the class with the journalists, so we will be 3 instructors usually, so one would be the main instructor, and then the other would just go around the room, and during exercises would just like help people one-on-one. So I'm really keen on that, and I've done that also at Ping Programming. If someone, for example, comes in and is like, I want to do like web or something, and just sitting down and maybe going through a tutorial on HTML with them. But yeah, sorry, to answer your question, I don't know or haven't seen yet. Yeah.
Hello, it's over here, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Right, so it surprised me a little bit that you decided to not cover functions as part of your introduction. So I'm interested, could you comment a little bit more on how that has improved sort of the understanding of the use of or what you focused on instead?
Yeah, I'm also surprised, and actually my colleague told me to stress on that here for this audience, and it is counterintuitive, I guess, but it's just that it gives them more time and brain space to process what they've seen like before, because each time we add, so obviously it always takes some time to, and also practice to really understand what's going on. So it's more like okay, this time let's skip it and see, and they manage to take in what we like the rest, and also work on their function, and if on a one-to-one basis. So when we give them support on Slack, for example, so we can try and introduce, depending on how far and how fast they go, we can introduce more notions and maybe say, oh, we mentioned function during the class, we haven't made you like create functions, but blah, 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 blah. And at this point, we can maybe introduce it. And then the next time we can say to other people, oh, can you show what you did to other people in the class? So that's a function that we mentioned before, and that's how it works. And at least they remember. So that's also why I wanted to tie it into other developers in the community, or it could be your colleagues that come to you and like, oh, I did this Python course, so I did this tutorial and I heard about this concept or this thing. And then someone else also could come in, like a developer at the organization, and be like, yeah, that's how you define a function. And yeah, they have the tools, they sort of have an idea of what they can do with Python. So that's our main goal, I guess. There was someone else.
So, yep.
Hello. I'm actually curious about the newsworthy. I'm not sure if it's a service or how are you guys handling it, but I wanted to ask you if has it currently been used only by like news agencies and this kind of organizations, or have you had like customers from some other type of?
No, as far as I know, it's either news organizations in Sweden, I think, only, for example, in areas where there are maybe lots of small municipalities to sort of keep track of. So it would be useful to not have to look through the data for each municipalities. And the other clients, we have this funding for a European project. So yeah.
Okay, so it's also EU level things that you guys have worked on.
Yeah, it can ingest different type of data sets.
I may want to grab you later. I'm kind of curious about that one. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions?
Over there. Oh no.
Where? Oh. I lost you in the crowd.
Hi, question. Did your engine for finding news have any news stories that you decided not to disclose due to ethical considerations?
Oh, that's a really good question, actually. Ethics. There is no ethics in the pipeline so far. At the moment, it's the first service is the stats one. That's if something unusual happens, and then a second one runs to see if actually news, if it can be considered news. But yeah, that's actually a good point. Something to think about. No, we don't have that at the moment.
Right.
Oh.
Yes.
Maybe quite small question. In era of fake news, is there any validation if it's real news or it was planted news? While you, for example, like doing internet scrapping, so it's like you need to select what was real, what is not real,
sources.
and how to deal with this information.
Yeah, that's another question. Yeah, we don't have a specific, I guess, system or service that does that. I guess we count on some particular platforms being like true, like the truth. But it's, yeah, again, that's a good point. So it's just that we expect if we're getting for data in a particular type of data on a particular type of platform that it would be true. But yeah, that's actually a good point. In our day and age, can we actually be sure that a
because,
particular
you can
platform will not
spot
be
on the point, if it was a fake news, then you can even
amplified?
create more.
Yeah, yeah.
So it will be amplified many times, and then,
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Yeah.
Thank you.
Chairwoman, want to ask a question?
Wait. Oh, sorry.
My question is, when you're teaching journalists this basics Python, how much of Python do you think they use on an everyday basis, like later? Do they really need this in everyday life, or do they use some like Power BI or Tableau just to visualize the data? I mean, what is the reason why you're the first place teaching them exactly Python? Why Python, and then how much they use this later?
So why Python? I think it's depending on the needs that they have. It feels like it, like in terms of data analysis, tools are already there. Web scraping, so Beautiful Soup is like widely used libraries. I think, yeah, it's more the tools available and also the documentation, and like there are all kind of resources also that is available. So I think that's how Python makes sense. And how much do they use it? It depends on what organization they're part of. And a lot of them don't have coding as part of their job yet, in a way. It's also their push towards including it inside their organizations and trying to, I guess a fair proportion of them will have like project on the side to try and prove to the leadership that it's actually useful, and this cool thing that we saw on the Guardians, like the New York Times or something like that, we can actually do it as well with like by using codes. But yeah, although it's directly applicable, they might not directly use it. They might have to do some push like internally.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yep.
and sorry
Thanks.
for the mic.
Yep.